Hi friends. Bone and scythe is a classic image of death in Western culture, but not the only one. Outdated social orders embodied death in many ways. Modern science has depersonalized death, removed the smoke screen from it and found a stunning view of the organic and physical processes that separate the living from the dead. In any case, why even investigate the experience of death if there is still no way back? The study of death is certainly not a difficult sign of the coolness of fate, but is an approach to improving the state of life. The dark cloak of smirking skull. Bone and scythe is a classic image of death in Western culture, but not the only one. Ancient societies embodied death in many ways. The Greeks had a winged thanatos that cut off a strand of hair, freeing the soul from its body. The Scandinavians had a hermit hell, gloomy and uncommunicative. And among the Indians, the god of Yama's death in bright clothes. Modern science has depersonalized death, removed its smoke screen and found a confusing image of the natural and physical procedures that distinguish the living from the dead. In any case, because of these revelations, we can say that the death is gradually becoming more alien to us. Many people think death is a kind of dream. The head fills with weight. The eyelids are getting heavier and closing. One last breath, and everything disappears. In my own way, it feels good. Too bad, it's not real. Dr. Samparnia, head of the Langone Medical Center Emergency Department at NYU, has been studying death for a long time. He made the assumption that consciousness is maintained for some time after death. The cerebral cortex, its part responsible for thinking, emits waves for an additional 20 seconds after death. Studies on guinea pigs have found increased brain activity after death, causing a state of excitement and overcrowding. If these conditions occur in humans, this proves that the brain remains fully conscious in the early stages of death. At the same time, it reveals why survivors of clinical death sometimes recall what happened despite the fact that they were actually dead. In any case, why even study the experience of death if there is still no way back? Just as analysts study the subjective idea of attachment and its orderly experience, we try to understand exactly what people experience at the moment of death. We believe that these feelings will inevitably affect us all, said Live Science. Yale Medical School researchers have purchased 32 pig brains from nearby slaughterhouses. No, it wasn't some mafia-style intimidation tactic. They established order in the hope of giving the brains a physiological resurrection. The researchers linked the brain to a synthetic perfusion gadget known as Brain X. It pumped through them a solution that mimics blood circulation, delivering oxygen and vitamins to inert tissues. This machine restored the brain and kept some of its cells alive for 36 hours after death. The cells consumed and metabolized sugar. Immune structures in the brain even rolled back. And some samples were even able to generate electrical signals. Since the researchers did not aspire to Animal Farm with zombies, they included chemical compounds in the solution that prevented the neural activity of the representative of consciousness. Their real goal was to create technological know-how that would help us to know the brain and its cellular functions more thoroughly. With its help, we could also increase the number of new drugs for intellectual accidents and neurodegenerative states. Is there life after death or not? Science has found no proof of the afterlife or how much the soul weighs. But our genes continue to exist after death. posted by the Royal Society's Open Biology, studied gene expression in dead mice and danio fish. The researchers were unsure whether gene expression was decreasing step by step or stopping at all. What they discovered struck them. Over 1,000 genes became more active after death. In some cases, these figures lasted up to 4 days. "We didn't assume that," said Peter Noble, author of the study and professor of microbiology at the University of Washington. Can you imagine that 24 hours after time of death you take a sample and the number of transcripts of genes is actually increasing in abundance? It was a surprise. Gene expression has been proven for stress and immune reactions and developmental genes. Noble and his co-authors argue that this indicates that the body is undergoing a gradual shutdown, which means that the vertebrates are dying gradually, not all at once. Even our genes will eventually disappear, and everything we are will turn into clay. Do you find such oblivion disappointing? In this you are not alone, however. You can be further comforted by the truth that the phase of your life will continue long after your death. Your energy. According to the first law of thermodynamics, the energy that feeds all of existence continues and in no way can be destroyed. It is being transformed. As comedian and physicist Aaron Freeman explains in his Poetry from Physics. You prefer a physicist to remind your weeping mother of the first regulation of thermodynamics, that no energy is created in the universe and no energy is destroyed. You want your mother to know that all your energy, every vibration, every BTU of heat, every wave of every particle that was her favorite child remains with her in this world. You want a physicist to tell his weeping father that among the energies of space you gave as much as you got. The experience of death loved ones comes in many different styles. Some people drift over their bodies. Some go to the supernatural kingdom and meet their dead relatives. Others enjoy the traditional scenario of dark tunnels and bright light. They all share the same problem: we don't know what's going on. A study published in Neurology suggests that near-death experiences come from a kind of sleep and waking state. Comparing survivors who were close to death with those who had no such experience, the researchers found that people with near-death experiences are also more likely to be exposed to REM invasions, a condition in which sleep interferes with awake consciousness. People who have experienced near-death experiences have an excitatory system that predisposes them to REM invasion, said Professor Kevin Nelson of the University of Kentucky and lead author of the study to the BBC. Indeed, it is worth noting that the study does have its limitations. 55 participants in each group were interviewed, and the implications were based on unconfirmed data. These data highlight the main difficulties in analyzing near-death experience. Such experiences are unusual and cannot be initiated in a controlled environment. Such a concept would be a big pink flag for any ethics board. The end result is scarce facts open to many interpretations, but it is unlikely that the soul enjoys a post-mortem wander. One scan connected photos on redundant cabinets in 1,000 wards of a medical facility. These pictures will only be visible to people whose soul has left their bodies and returned. No one who survived cardiac arrest has ever seen these pictures. Again, if they could break their flesh chains, they might have had their own additional urgent matters. However, we are not sure at the moment, but the testimony suggests that the answer may be yes. Field researchers have seen elephants stay with the lifeless, even if the deceased is no longer from the same domestic herd. This observation led the researchers to conclude that elephants had a generalist answer to death. Dolphins were also seen as protecting the dead of their species. And chimpanzees maintained public order with the dead, such as wool care. None of the other species was observed performing similar rituals of remembrance to humans, which requires a generalized thinking, but these actions suggest that animals have a special understanding and reaction to death. As Jason Goldman writes to the BBC, for every aspect of life that is unique to our species, there are hundreds that are shared with other animals. As important as it is not to project our personal emotions on animals, we also want to remember that we ourselves are inevitable animals. Anthropologist Donald Brown studied human cultures and identified thousands of elements common to all and everyone. Among them, each subculture has its own personal way of honoring and mourning the dead. But who was once the first? A man or any other hominin in our ancestry? This answer is complicated by the fact that it is shrouded in the mist of our prehistoric past. However, we have a candidate, Homo naledi. Several fossils of this extinct hominin were found in the cave chamber of the Rising Star System, the cradle of humanity, South Africa. Entering the chamber required vertical ascent, several narrow junctions and many crawls. This forced the researchers to admit that hardly so many people were there by chance. Moreover, they dominated geological traps like caves. Given the seemingly deliberate placement, some came to the conclusion that the cameras served as a Homo naledi cemetery. Others are unsure and want more evidence before we can definitively answer this question. For most of us, the line between life and death is harsh. We're alive, that's why we're not dead. It is a thought that many take for granted, and we should be grateful that we can control it so easily. People with Cotards syndrome can't see separation so purely. This rare situation was first described through Dr. Jules Cotard in 1882 and describes people who believe that they are dead, that they lack body parts or that they have lost a soul. This nihilistic delusion is manifested in the prevailing experience of hopelessness, forgetfulness about health and problems related to external reality. In one case, a 53-year-old Philippine lady with Cotards syndrome thought she smelled like rotten fish and wanted to be taken to the morgue to be with her species. Fortunately, her antipsychotic and antidepressant regimen has improved her condition. Others suffering from this debilitating intellectual disease are cured with appropriate treatment. Nope. This is a myth, however, of biological origin. The reason why hair and nails do not grow after death is because new cells cannot produce. Glucose promotes cell division, and cells need oxygen to break down glucose into cellular energy. Death prevents the body from consuming both of these energies. It also stops the body from consuming water, which causes the body to dehydrate. When the pores and skin of a corpse dry up, it is torn from the nails, making them seem longer, and pulled around the face, giving the chin of a lifeless man a 5-hour shadow. Anyone who, unfortunately, exhumes the body sufficiently should easily accept these changes as growth symptoms. Interestingly, the post-mortem hair and boom of the nails provoked legends about vampires and different creatures of the night. When our ancestors dug up fresh corpses and found hair growth and blood stains in their mouths, the result of natural blood accumulation, their minds naturally got lost deep down. We must not worry about becoming undead. Unless, of course, you donate your brain to the Yale School of Medicine. People who have turned 110 years old, called super longevity, are a rare breed. Those who have lived to be 120 years old are even rarer. The longest living person according to documents was once Jean Calment, a French woman who lived an amazing 122 years. But why are we dying? Throwing aside non-secular and existential answers, the easy answer is that nature has ended us after a certain moment. The success of life, in evolutionary terms, is to pass on its genes to its descendants. Thus, most species die quickly after their fruit-bearing days are over. Salmon die soon after they've made their transition upwards to fertilize their eggs. For them, it's a one-way journey. People are a little different. We invest closely in our young people, so we need a longer lifespan to continue parental care. But human lives are many years ahead of their fertility. This increased life expectancy allows us to invest time, care, and resources in our grandchildren, who share our genes. This is known as the grandmother effect. But if grandparents are so useful, why is the limit set for more than 100 years? Because our evolution does not invest in longevity beyond that. Nerve cells don't replicate, the brain constricts, hearts weaken, and we die. If evolution wanted us to last longer, maybe these kill switches would be uprooted, but evolution, we understand, requires death to promote adaptive life. However, at that age, it is likely that our youth can come to our grandparents' years, and our genes will be taken care of in future generations.